Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. Today we have Kimmy Angelique of KimmyAngelique.com. Psychic, medium, shaman, shadow work, and Reiki master as well. How you doing, Miss Kimmy?
I'm doing great. How are you two?
Doing good.
Yeah,
Doing good.
all good. So, Kimmy, thanks for being on with us. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us more about you and what you're doing, where you're from, etc.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show, especially during this time of year when the veil is thinnest and our connection to spirit is the strongest. So thank you. I'm a psychic medium. I'm a spiritual healer. I am a shamanic practitioner. I am a Reiki master, and I love doing shadow work as well as being a paranormal junkie. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed. Anything spiritual, spirit, holistic health, all that, that's me.
Excellent. Quite a plethora of interests and skills. Then, what's that? Would you say paranormal stuff was your favorite thing to do, and what kind of stuff are you talking about when it comes to sort of that kind of that?
Well, I'm actually doing a paranormal investigation with a friend of mine, Jose Joe, this weekend, but I love watching it. I love watching paranormal investigations, especially when the ghost hunters, if you will, are respectful of spirit. So it's not about, chasing down spirits, but it's taking technology, the science, and also having that spiritual experience, but also getting that validation from the scientific devices that they use. I absolutely love it because I've known as a child that spirit is real. But now, because it's so popular, at least here in the States, people that didn't have the experiences that I had as a child, they're now starting to see that spirit is real based on scientific devices that they use. So I'm obsessed a little bit.
Have you been on many ghost hunts yourself, or ghosts, so to speak?
I've been connected to the shadow side since I was a child, so I didn't have to go hunting for them. They came to me as a child, but I do love going on investigations. But when I do it, especially if it's a tour, it can be a little bit annoying because you have people that are just kind of into the trend, if you will. So they're yelling at the spirits to show themselves and this and that, whereas I'm in the background having a conversation with the spirit and apologizing for the behavior around me. But I love the connection, the story behind why the spirit is there. Why are they quote unquote stuck, or why have they decided not to cross over? That's what really interests me.
Let me ask you this. So when I was in Savannah, which is extremely haunted in Georgia, for a year and a half, I run into some ghost people down there. And like I had one guy very interesting. So I was gonna do just a ghost tour thing on the side. And just to take up some time. But he realized that I was crossing over the ghost. And so he didn't want to hire me. He wanted to hire me for his, he wanted me to come in and look at things. But I'm like, but understand Savannah is extremely, there's really dark stuff going on.
Yes, there's
portals to weird places. And you get my point. So I'm hearing my guys she gets your point. So the point is I'm like, I'm going to start closing these things. Because if it's causing this much trouble, because it's like they had them locked in a cage.
Yeah.
They had them locked in a cage. There was 10 of these a night. You had all these historic buildings. There's one there that has 2 haunted rooms. It's booked out for 3 years. It's like all there. So like what I found is with a lot of psychics, because I would talk to them that worked with these teams, these teams didn't, and I'm not saying obviously anyone you know, but in Savannah, they didn't respect them, like the psychics. And I was like, one of my friends, I told her, I was like, well, just get them around me. Like they're not going to be able to out talk. Like I'm a guy. I'm not like, you know,
Yeah.
5'1" girl. But I mean, I'm going to say something crazy. Jimmy knows me. I'll say something crazy too. But yeah, I just wondering what your thoughts on all that.
It's a very hard thing when you yourself are a psychic medium, because when you go in there, you're communicating with the spirits, and even just the conversation itself could be enough for the spirit to cross over. But these are money makers for those who have these hotels and plantations and everything like that. So, as sincere as they come across, on TV, the fact of the matter is they don't want these spirits to be crossed over, because then they lose their money source. They lose the ghost hunting teams that want to come in there and investigate. However, as a psychic medium, our first duty is with spirit, right? So if a spirit comes to me and wants help, who am I to deny them that? My intention is not to go in there and say, hey, I'm going to cross everybody over, because it's not me who does that. It's the spirit who says, I'm ready to do that. Right. So you have that fine line, where you want to help, but you're going in there for the history. One of the issues that I also have with these haunted places is that when you bring in all these other people and they're bringing in Ouija boards or whatever else they're using, they're also bringing in other spirits that have nothing to do with the history of the location. So that's where it becomes, it could become dangerous, but it also loses the reason why everybody is going there. So I don't know. It's a fine line, right? You want to go there. I just go there to open mind.
We almost had a lady on last week. I don't want to say her name, obviously, Jimmy, but she communicates totally through spirit boxes. And what I was going to say to her, and it's no offense to any ghost hunters watching at all. This is just, that's what I felt I needed to ask her, because I know a lot about witchcraft and Enochian and all these things. And I'm like, are you putting that spirit box in like an Enochian protection circle or a Wiccan protection circle before you start opening portals to places you don't know? But that's kind of my thing. It's like, it's all there. I mean, you see it in TV shows like Supernatural and stuff like that, where they really research this stuff, because I see what they're researching. But yeah, it's just strange to me. But what's like your, when you've done this stuff, what's like the weirdest thing you've been, if I know people love me asking me that on lives and stuff, but what's like the strangest thing you've encountered?
Well, I see with my eyes. I also see with my third eye. So obviously seeing a shadow figure probably was by far the creepiest thing, because I saw the shadow figure in the dark. And so if you've ever encountered a shadow figure, they're darker than the dark. So like, it's the craziest thing. However, it wasn't evil, which is a word that drives me absolutely insane. It wasn't negative. It was just the energy it had to show itself to me. So that was freaky. I've seen things move in front of me with no explanation as to why. So that's always, obviously I've been doing this for years, but even that still freaks me out, because it's amazing. You know what I mean? That like they have that much energy to actually affect our physical world. So
some of those darker things, because last night I didn't know this park was near me, but it's well lit. And I was like, oh, holy shit, I can film stuff here all day long. It was like 12 at night. I was just walking and I found this park that was totally lit up. But I was showing people things I was seeing around there. And like I do deal with some like like I do get rid of some darker stuff. People come to me for that. But I think it's just having people understand that without, I don't know how I'm trying to word this. It's like
Mhm.
having people understand that without freaking out. Because everyone thinks spirituality is love and light.
I'm not one of those.
And it's not. I mean, we look at the state of the world, this is not love and light. So it's like, I'm like, this, people are like, well, why is the whole world being destroyed? Because I get some crazy questions on TikTok. But
I'm
I'm
sure.
like, this is the awakening you asked for.
Yes, absolutely. You said it before on one of your previous episodes, and I've said it. You can't have the light without the dark, and vice versa. You
Yeah.
can't, um, appreciate all the wonderful things in life if you haven't, experienced pain or sadness, that type of thing. And it's the same thing with the spiritual world. But I also want to make a note that, just because something is not crossed over and we feel a heavier energy with them does not always make them
Okay.
bad or evil. And I've heard
Yeah.
some mediums, some well-known mediums, um, express that only evil spirits are stuck or earthbound. And that is so not true. And it bothers me to my core. And anyone who knows me who's watching right now knows that that is a sore subject with me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I want to go out and teach more people the side, the shadow side, because it's so misunderstood. It's so misunderstood. These are just people. Yes, there are darker things out there, but these are people who demand respect. And what you're feeling may not be that they're bad. You may be feeling their energy. Maybe they're sad or depressed or they're confused. You may be picking up on that energy and not evil energy. So that's another thing that I want, ghost hunters and those who go in there to really keep an open mind, stop antagonizing them, stop yelling at them. They're people. They can hear you. They can read your thoughts. They can hear you telepathically. So calm
Yeah,
down.
yeah. And something that's just occurred to me is that, when you're talking about it, and people were saying, oh, why is the whole world gone crazy or whatever, and things are going this chaotic and mad and everything like
Mhm.
that, and bad things are happening. And I think if you asked anyone who's gone through, say, a dark night of the soul, things tend to get pretty fucked up when you go through that. But just after you go through that, then it's almost like you become rebirthed in a sense. You know, things change.
Yeah,
So, and if that happens to the individual, and we kind of a representation and connected to the earth and the energies around it and what goes
mhm,
on, then it makes sense that if it happens to the individual, then it's got to happen to the earth for the earth to sort of go
absolutely.
through that period as well. So because they're interconnected. And so that could be one explanation why things seem to be going all weird and crazy and mad and that it's going through that sort of a collective dark night of the soul in a sense.
Absolutely. Yes. As a person who has gone through the dark night of the soul a couple of times, maybe even a few, it is horrible when you're going through it. It is so
Mm,
bad. But when
mm,
you come out of it on the other side and you have this knowledge that you didn't have before, your eyes are open, your abilities are, increased. It is one of the best things you will ever experience in your life. It sounds so weird that I'm saying that, but it's so
Yeah.
true. There are days where I am so grateful to God
mm,
that I have these abilities, that I was chosen to be able to speak to spirit, to be able to have intuition and have these feelings. And I know when we're all young on this journey, we curse the day that we found out we were empaths, but oh my gosh, what a beautiful gift from God it is to have that. And the chaos that's going on around the world right now, yes, it's a lot. We're feeling it. We're all, anxious, but think about it in the spiritual sense. after this is past, how many people are going to be reawakened because of all of this? There's going to be more healers, more psychics, more mediums out there helping to raise the vibration of the earth. So that's how I look at it. It sucks, but there's a reason, there's a lesson in everything, right?
All right, indeed.
Well,
Sorry,
Jimmy,
go on,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I feel like just delicately. It's your own camera. Okay, so I gotta take your own camera. So essentially, like all these things are getting exposed, which I feel is low man on the totem pole. Okay. There's obviously a political figure involved. I don't think they want him in there. Whatever. Not choosing sides here, but I'm like all these things are getting exposed. There could possibly be weather modification. Like there's all these things going on, and it's like, and I saw a video last night. It was actually a former president talking. I don't want to say who, but he was like, if you make the people question the very truth of reality, they will question everything. Like their leaders have fallen, their celebrities have fallen. I was like, I remember watching this years ago. There's someone I voted for too. And I was like, damn, man, like you're talking about this like your first year in office. Like you knew something.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's funny because, you know, even spiritually, you start questioning everything that you were taught growing up. If you were religious, you start questioning all of that, you know, like you wonder what's true, what's not, is there a little bit of both? Like you can go mad. So as you both know, it's like, you know, stay grounded and constantly talk to your guides and get that reassurance from them. And, you know, we're not meant to know everything. You know, where there's certain things that we're supposed to know, some things that we're not supposed to know. But I do feel that in the darker times, it's to prepare, you know, a new generation of light workers, shadow workers, healers, all of that type of stuff. And if you didn't have the darker times, you wouldn't have that call to action, right? So it's all what our earth school, our lesson, you know, we all have these contracts that we written up, and these are the experiences that we're going to experience in order to grow our soul. So when we're feeling negative and down, we have to kind of remind ourselves of that. There's a reason for that. There will be better times, but what's the lesson? What's the lesson now?
Yeah, good advice.
The question, what's the lesson for Earth? You know?
Yeah. What's the collective? What's the whole? What's the lesson?
I mean, there's so many lessons, right? We could take from the fact of let's go back to when the pandemic kind of began in the U.S. When we were shutting everything down, and all of a sudden, animals who, you know, that were extinct were reproducing and coming back. They were in the streets, you know, when, you know, cars used to be, and forests were growing, and the seas were, you know, coming alive. And it was like our moment of, we can save this, we can take steps to, you know, bring back all of the beauty of earth. Mother earth can heal herself, we just kind of have to help. So that to me was a huge lesson. You know, here's this huge pandemic that unfortunately was killing people, but there also was a positive side to it if we really looked at it. So I really do try to look at both sides, because I'm a shadow worker and a light worker. So that's what I have to do, right? I have to look at all sides.
Yeah.
Right, indeed. And Lisa Tenor, I think that's how you pronounce her surname, says, hi, Kimmy. Tell them about the Reading Roadhouse, if you can talk, about that.
Hi, Lisa. Okay, so yes, this is one of my intuitive friends, Lisa Tenori, and we decided to stop in a restaurant because it had some energy. I'd never been there before. She was there before, so she took me in there, and you could immediately feel the energy. There was I would say a heavier, I don't want to say darker. There was a heavier energy. And when we kind of felt into that energy, we realized that there was a female who, this was her house at one point, and now it's a restaurant. So she's kind of, possessive over that
Mm.
property. And you have all these people coming in and out, all this different energy, and she did not like it. So if you were, maybe a ghost hunter that wasn't, knowledgeable, you may see that as negative energy, dark energy, but it wasn't. It was just somebody who didn't like people on her property. But there was also a male energy there that I
Mm.
personally found to be kind of indifferent. He was just doing his thing. But he touched me, freaked me out because I wasn't expecting it, but it was kind of cool at the same time because it
Mm.
was, that physical touch. So I
Mm.
love that spirits can reach into our world and affect our physical surroundings. But
Mm.
it's a little bit of a longer story, but it was a great experience, and the fact that they actually allowed us to do a little investigation without any, you know,
Mm.
schedule or anything. We just kind of popped in and we
Mm.
bought some food afterwards just to, pay them. But anyway.
Nice. Yeah, nice. Do you
When I, go ahead.
sorry, whenever you go into a place or to somewhere, do you because I had something or I saw something a while ago that said they ask permission of the spirits if they can be there or if they can do something there or whatever, instead of just turning up and doing whatever and having thinking you've got carte blanche to move around. Is it something that do you think is a good way of sort of having
Yes.
that relationship, that sort of respect to
Yes.
ask the spirits?
I my example is I don't put the welcome sign on my
Mm.
porch because I don't want,
Right. Mm.
strangers just popping up at my house, right? It looks great on the porch, especially around, this season, but I don't do that because I don't want any, stranger to think that they can just come and knock on my door. That's just my personal preference. So if you're going into a location, I would, you
Mm.
know, set an intention, communicate with the spirits. This is what I'm here for.
Mm.
A lot of people don't do that. But why I think it's such a good idea is because when you're doing that, maybe you do a prayer, maybe you do an opening, maybe you do an intention, you're also kind of protecting yourself, if you will. I mean, we're always protected, but if you're setting an intention, then the spirits understand that you're not coming from a
Mm.
negative viewpoint or whatever. You're going in there with the utmost respect.
Mm.
And that's what I want to do. I'm coming in there to have a conversation with you. I'm not trying to cross you over unless that's something you want to do. And
Mm.
even sometimes, like you said, Thomas, when you're going to these places that are money makers, the owners don't want that. So I'm just there to have a conversation and leave. But I also close afterwards. I want to make sure that nothing is coming home with me. Nothing is attaching to me. They know that they stay where they are. So I very
Mm.
much find it important for any practice to have an opening and closing. So you're
Mm.
setting your intentions in the beginning, you're setting your intentions at the end in any spiritual practice.
Mm. Good advice.
I think I noticed last night. I noticed in Savannah, I'll just tell these two stories really fast, but I'm in Forsyth Park, which is the most famous parks in Savannah. All these wars have been fought. Every war on American soil, they buried soldiers 2 feet in the ground or a foot underneath the soil. But I'm walking through Forsyth. This is like 3 years ago, and my guides are like, "Look behind you." And so I look. I'm talking to my friend on my headphones, and there's like 30 ghosts following me. And they're like, I was like, "What do you want me to do with this?" And they're like, "Just open a portal and then to close it before you leave." And they all just started piling through. So even last night when I was at this park, which one of my biggest lives I ever had on TikTok was I was in a Walmart, Louisiana, crossing over ghosts and like portals, and because there's so much, the land's so scarred over there.
Oh my gosh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so like even last night when I was doing it, I was crossing over ghosts as I was walking around. And I'd open a portal here, a portal there. And I go in one area, there'd be fairies. I go in one area, there'd be like dimensional like beings that look like yellow jackets, which I didn't even know what that was. Um, It was like guys business, so like just leave them alone. So
Yep.
I'm just like, whatever. But it was like 2 in the morning, or 1 in the morning or 12 at night or something. But yeah, it's just for me it's like, I don't know. I want to try to cross them over. I have forced some to cross over. Sometimes people come to me for that.
Mhm.
For like there was one person, their relative. The relative was draining them of energy. I don't want to get into the negative aspects too much, but of things I've seen. But it's strange because it's like there's no one size fits all to all this.
Yeah, no, it's not. I've helped cross spirits over who just needed to know that they were dead. That was all they needed to know.
Mhm.
And they crossed over, and I was like, wow, okay. That was easy. They were confused. They didn't know. But then there were those who I had to get down to the bottom of, why are you angry? Like, what's going on with you? First, you had to get past the whole, because earthbound spirits, sometimes they like to show themselves in their death state, right? So if you're scared, this is not the job for you. You have to be very, understanding. But underneath all of that is a human that went through something. So let's get through all the, the scary stuff or whatever they want to project, and find out, why are you here? What's going on? I had someone um, who, again, it was originally their house. Now it was a hotel. There were people coming in and out, and no one was responding to her. And to her, she's alive. She's in her house. These people are here. She's talking to them. Why are you there? And they're ignoring her. So after years and years and years of this happening, she became angry and frustrated. So that was the energy you felt when you went into this location.
Mhm.
But it wasn't evil. It was, the only time I get a response from these living is when I show energy, is when I make something move. It's the only time that they actually respond to me. So when I go to her and I'm communicating with her, I'm indifferent. I'm not scared. I'm more of, kind of, leave me alone. Why are you bothering me? And it turned out that she was looking for her granddaughter. Her granddaughter had crossed over. And so all I needed to do was call in the angels and call in her granddaughter. And as soon as she saw her granddaughter, she went from this like old hag to this beautiful Victorian lady who
Mm.
easily crossed over. But we had to get to the story. What was she looking for? Why was she still there? And it just, like you said, there's no one size fits all. You have to get to the story. You have to communicate with them, feel into their energy, but maintain respect for them, because they're people.
Mm.
They're just, confused, stuck. And people use the word stuck. Some people don't believe in the word stuck. I don't believe in um, well, God didn't want you to cross over or whatever. I believe it's their choice. They
Mm.
decided, for whatever reason, whether it be unfinished business, whether it be that they're confused, or whether they want to stay at their house, whatever it is, they made that choice. They still have free will to stay, to do whatever they're doing. And so it has to be them that wants to cross over.
Mm.
So it's having a conversation with them like any other
Mm.
person. Therapy
Mm.
session, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you mentioned angels just briefly just then. Got a question from Tanya, and I suppose it could apply to sort of more of a general how to communicate. But I'll put it up on the screen so you can read it. But I'll read it out. She says, "Is there a way to communicate with the angel Raphael? I tried everything. I cannot find the link. He's the angel for healing and guidance." And I thought that it'd be good to sort of maybe you can share anything to communicate with sort of with all angels or anyone of someone's choosing.
Absolutely. I was actually communicating with Archangel Raphael yesterday because, like we were talking before, I was sick. So I was giving myself self healing. And, Archangel Raphael is the angel of healing, and compassion and love and heart. And so if you want to communicate, be open to the different ways of communication. Don't expect that you're going to see something if your ability is to hear. If your ability is to feel, don't expect to hear something. So, what is your strongest ability? Do you feel? Do you hear? Do you just know? Maybe you're the type that needs to journal. I don't know why that came into my head. So maybe you're the type that needs to journal. Let's write down a question for Archangel Raphael and let's see what comes to us and write it down. Maybe that's the way that you communicate with Archangel Raphael. He's there. Whether you see, hear, feel, know that he's there, he's there. So it's just a matter of figuring out your unique way to communicate with spirit.
There's not, like you said, it's not a question that he can't hear you or any of them can't hear us. It's just a question of us being open to receiving their messages or their presence or whatever in whichever way is that is best for us. It is more that we'll recognize more and not to have any premonition or expectation of how that's going to happen.
Absolutely. Be open, don't judge, and be open to even seeing repeating numbers. That may be your confirmation. Maybe you have a question and you see the color green because that's his color, or you feel flutters, or you get the goosebumps, or whatever it is. It may be so subtle. So be open to anything.
She says, she says, is there any prayer or any words that need to be said to pull upon him?
Anything that comes to you. You can go on Pinterest if you want to and find any pre-written archangel prayer, but guess what? That just came from a regular person who was feeling something. So I would suggest, what does your heart say? Start off with, dear Raphael, whatever. And what do you want to know from him? What do you want to communicate from him? The best way to communicate with any angel is going to be through your own heart. So I can give you words, but they're just words. You can create the words yourself. Let's see. For you, Tanya, not to do a reading, but I'm being drawn. I don't know why my necklace just fell off. But I'm being drawn to your heart, your heart. So I don't know if you get fluttering or anything like that, but I feel like you almost have like a radar when spirit is around you. So tap into your heart and just write what comes to you. Write your own prayer, because all it is your love, your intentions are going to make those words more effective and stronger. That's all it is.
And it's trusting. Sorry, go on.
Let me throw in this too. So even as a psychic with the work I do, like I work with Metatron a lot and Syrians and Lyrians and whatever. But it's like Gabriel. Gabriel's been trying to talk to me forever. I don't want to talk to him. So it's only recently, some spit by, but it's only recently that I had to be open to talking to him. So people want to make this so complex. This has to be such a very complex thing of understanding, when it doesn't have to be very complex. It can be very simple. Literally writing out a prayer to clear if there's something in your room, you could write out a prayer of clearing out the whole room, and that will clear out the whole room. Maybe you have to throw some stuff in there, sage, Wiccan, Druid, whatever. But the point of it is, or Christian, whatever. But it's just like, I think people make it so hard because the number one question I get, Kimmy, which annoys the shit out of me, is how do I talk to my spirit guides? And I think people get mad at me sometimes, especially on my live feeds and clients, because I'm like, you know how long this took? Like, for me to get to where I'm at, which I'm going to be learning my whole life. But I'm like, I don't know how to explain that in 5 minutes. It's different for everyone.
It's different for everybody, and it's different depending on where you are on your journey. So I'll give you an example. I want it real quick, Tanya. I keep hearing that you need repetition. So I don't know if you're stubborn or you start things and then maybe don't finish them. So what I'm hearing is create your own little prayer for him. That's totally fine, but you got to keep saying it. And the more you say it, trust me, you're going to start feeling him. Say it every day if you have to. Sit in, silence after you say it for 5 minutes, whatever it is. But for you, repetition, repetition. And then same thing, even like when you're starting and you're doing like protection prayers and all that stuff, after a while, you don't have to say all of that because the intention is there. But in the beginning, when we're so like out of touch with our spirituality, it's like spirit has to hit us over the head to say, hey, we're here, right? So when I first awakened, I was seeing crazy things. And I was like, holy shit, am I like losing my mind? But now I don't need that. It could be so subtle because I trust and believe. I don't need all of that stuff. Like I'm always aware of spirit. So it also changes while you're on your journey as well.
Yeah, totally. And Tanya, thank you for your question. If you want anything else, then I'd suggest getting in touch with Kimmy through our website or Thomas if you drawn to Thomas. But yeah, if you want anything further, so you get in touch with either of them and go from there. But Michelle has a question. Hey Michelle, she says, this is going back to, I guess, crossing them over. Do you find that some of them are just wanting a healing before they leave?
Thomas, do you want to take it or you want me to?
Yeah. So last night, I don't always see them full bodied. There was only one that I really saw full body, and it was a little girl. And immediately, like emotionally, I shifted when I saw that. It wasn't so much of a warrior thing anymore. Just crossing them over, but I was like, oh shit, it's a little girl. But yeah, I don't know what I did for her, but it's like I had to move her. I think I had to force her through. But it just felt like the right thing to do. If that's what happened, I can't remember. But essentially, yeah, I think sometimes they are needing healing. Or they're stuck, or they don't understand what's going on.
Absolutely. And that healing could be, so simple as acknowledging them, right? They're angry or sad or confused because they feel alone, whatever it is. Maybe they don't feel alone. Maybe they know 100% that they're dead and they want to guard their house, whatever their story may be. It may just be talking to them, having somebody that can communicate with them, that can understand them, just talking to them, because trust and believe, once they cross over, they're going to get all the healing that they need. It just may be, we need a little bit of understanding. And someone needs to talk them through it. Some may be stuck because they felt that they did bad things in life and they're going to be judged. But if I can communicate with them and say that that's not how it works, that all will be accepted if that's what you want, and then all of that, stuff that they grew up with, their conditioning, that goes away. And that sometimes is enough for them to walk through that door, the light or whatever it is. And they get all of the healing, they're healed as soon as they walk over and they do their life review and all that stuff. So it really depends. Sometimes, yeah, we can send healing to them and that could be just as helpful.
You ever feel like you have to wrestle them into a life review? I had a client, and I don't want to give up too much, but it's client confidentiality. But essentially, I got her into the angelic realm or one of these higher realms of consciousness. And I was like battling. I got training her relative that passed away. Hold on. Wrestle this guy off her, but I find sometimes it's like they don't want to go, and then the question becomes: do you force them or not? Whether it's on Earth or in another realm.
Yeah, it really depends. If we're going into someone's house and they're, being traumatized by the spirits that are there, that's different, right? Because we don't want these earthbound spirits around the living, because it creates sickness. It creates anxiety, all of this stuff for the living. So in that kind of case, we're going to be a little stronger, a little more forceful. You're going to need that because clearly that spirit has already said that they're not going anywhere. So you're going to need someone who they deem to be authoritative. So I may not be that authoritative figure for them. So that's where I'm going to call in you and say, hey, can you talk to this spirit? Because they only respond to male energy. So it really depends, And then if you're in a location that maybe the living aren't frequenting, then I'm going to say if they're not ready to cross over, then I'm not going to bother them because it's them who has to make that choice. But if it's affecting the living, that's when we're going to have to take matters in our own hand and kind of be a little stronger on our approach.
Yeah.
If, just the thought has just come to me while you said about getting someone else in. Has there ever been an instance, or do you think there would ever be an instance where, say, for example, you were dealing with something, but they weren't responding or what have you? Have you ever had to say, I don't know, change your energetic signature to sort of represent something that they maybe would respond to, or that maybe, you know what I'm trying to say, sort of almost like shapeshift in a sense?
Absolutely. This is where we all have our tool belt, right? We have different, modalities. We have different things that might help. We may even have other psychic mediums to help. So don't, I don't go in there or, thinking that I can do everything. Like I love working with other people, and I know when something is not for me and when I need to get somebody else in there. But I will try first. If you're tapping into their energy, you can kind of feel what they need, right? Because we're psychics, we're mediums, we can tap into their life, not just them as a ghost, or earthbound, but who were they in life? Because that's going to help you with any healing or crossing over that they need. If they were they didn't like women, women were beneath them or whatever, then I know I'm not the right person. I can go in there, hard and all that, but it's not going to work. Maybe I can go in as a damsel in distress. I don't know, but I'm going to try to meet their energy. What are their needs? Who are they as a soul? So it really depends. Sometimes Reiki is good enough to do a clearing. Sometimes you have to go in there with some heavier artillery. Sometimes you have to go in there with Archangel Michael, or if the spirit was very religious, then you bring in religious figures, from whatever religion they practice. So I'm not just a, Christian or spiritual or whatever. I know that, I studied different religions. So I know that there are divas that people may respond to. So there's so much, and you're only going to know as you continue going on. You're going to learn different things. Not everything, like you said, Thomas, it's not one size fits all for any practice.
Yeah, definitely.
I did a clearing a long time ago at this lady's house. There was so many things that were there. There was so many like slave ghosts that had been stuck on the ground. And I cleared all this stuff out, and it came down to one American African lady that was there from like the 1930s that was tilling the ground. And I was like, I'm trying everything I can think of, but I cannot get her to go. She doesn't, she will not listen to anything I'm saying. She's like, I'm tilling the ground, leave me alone. And I'm like, okay. She's like, oh no, I know who that is. She's out here all the time. But that sometimes there's just some that won't leave for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times they're just looking for, when I'm hearing from my guides, a lot of times they're just looking for forgiveness. Like it could be from a family member or something.
Yeah.
And then trying to convey that to the person can be hard. Because a lot of times they don't realize, like, even if they have totally crossed over, I mean, every time when I do mediumship, I can do the evidential stuff, but I'd rather just have them talk to them directly in a higher realm. But they always want forgiveness usually. Like, I didn't know what it was to be human. Now I'm over here. Same basic concept over and
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
And occasionally it's been a little weird, but it's very rare. And yeah, so it's just, I think it's communicating that, because people, they hold on to such trauma,
hmm I
and
mean,
it's like, yeah,
it's no different from the living, right? What holds us back in every aspect of our life? Fear, and everything that stems from fear. And so that's guilt, that's, sadness, that's, whatever it is. And so it's the same thing with spirits. They hold on to that. And then, if they're not crossed over, they have no idea what to expect on the other side. And so they need somebody to communicate that to them, because you have to understand the other ghosts that they're hanging out with, they're all in the same boat, right? They're all, wondering what's over there, or maybe they're not even realizing that they're dead for hundreds of years, whatever it is. And they need somebody to just let them know that it's okay. They need to kind of bring in that light, that love, whatever, to kind of cross out that fear and bring in some hope for them. Which, like one of your listeners, watchers were talking about, is a form of healing. It may not be like a whole hands-on healing session, but there's so many different methods of healing. Even, just someone saying, I forgive you, or forgive yourself, is healing, right? So
Yeah, definitely. Do you have your abilities, gifts? Do you have them open all the time, or do you sort of do you shut them off?
okay, so when I first started, when I knew I wanted to do this professionally, so about 10 years ago, because I've had abilities since I was a little kid. You're drained when you're wide open all the time. You have spirits coming in and out, crazy things. You're going to the doctors because you're sick, and they have no idea why you're sick, and it's because you're in that energy. Whether you're connecting to the higher realms, which is not where we usually vibrate, or if you're connecting to the lower realms, which is not where we usually vibrate, it's not our normal vibration, right? So it's taking us out of where we should be. And so like that can create so many things within the body. So you, just like a store opens for business hours and closes, you can't stay open. You cannot, like, it's such an intention. So if we feel like, okay, it's after business hours and we have to do, a ghost hunting or whatever, you could open it up. It's all intention, but I do not recommend staying open all the time. Lisa Tenori can tell you about what happens when I was completely open. You get attachments, you get sick, you have autoimmune diseases, all of that stuff. So I do not recommend. And it's so simple, just on or close, open, just mental intention.
Yeah, like flipping the sign on the door of the shop.
Tell spirits it's time to go to bed, leave me alone. Can't bother me when I'm trying to go to bed. We've all been there. I know we've seen faces right before we go to bed, and it's like, no.
Yeah. You find that that they always respect your decisions and your wishes when they don't contact you if you don't want to be contacted, basically.
I'm really good at shutting down right now. I really am. Like, it took me a while. Like, I see something from the corner of my eye, oh my gosh. No. Now I'm like, you just keep going. Have you ever reading a book and the TV is on, or there's kids around, there's barking dogs or whatever, tune them right out. Tune them right out.
Yeah.
Or, if back in the days when there used to be soap operas and there's all these, the mailman's there and all that, tune everything out. Focus on whatever you're doing at the moment, and that's all you need to do.
Yeah. Say if you're listening to if you're listening to music and you want to particularly hear the guitar, you just want to hear the piano, you can kind of focus on that rather than it's sort of like that, isn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Absolutely. That's actually a great exercise for practicing your clear audience.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's good. I didn't talk about that. Excellent.
Just listen to one instrument at a time, and then back and listen to only one instrument. That will sharpen your clear audience.
All right, that's a nice little exercise. Cool. Let's have a look. Lisa Tenori. She says, "Oh yes, when Kimmy first came to my, I'll put it on screen. When Kimmy first came to my healing studio, she was starting her journey. She was literally sick and full of anxiety, but now she has control of it. Connects and grounds."
It's so true. Like now I know when anxiety is mine and when it belongs to somebody else. Whereas when I was open, I didn't know. So that's also another thing. You're full of anxiety and your heart palpitations, your stomach is out of whack. Yeah, definitely, don't want that.
No, definitely not. So do you find that how much of, I mean, I'm not sure if you can put a figure on it or even need to put a figure on it, but when it comes to anxiety and sickness and illness and stuff like that, how much of it is it all energetic? Is it all attachments? Is it sort of just just combination, a mixture? What have you experienced insofar as you yourself and what you've seen from other people?
Well, it's all energy, right? So now we have to figure out whose energy, what energy, so is it mine? So that's when we'll do a deep dive and say, where did this anxiety stem from? So I've done past life regression, not on myself, but I went to a past life regression session and I found out from my personal life, where did it come from? But when you're working with spirit, you also feel what you think is anxiety, but it's really just the vibration rising up to reach spirit, right? But then there's also that lower level energy that we feel with the earthbounds. So they're very heavy. So there's a difference between heavy energy and high energy. And then sometimes it literally can be the person that you're standing next to. If you're an empath, God help you. But if you're an empath, you're feeling energy from somebody else, right? So you really have to call it out. So if I feel energy and I feel into it and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not mine. This belongs to someone else. The minute I figure out the source, it completely stops. So that's a huge tip. If you're an empath, if you have social anxiety for some reason, it could be the energy of where you're going. So if you're going to the mall, try pinpointing where that energy is coming from, but just knowing that it's not yours and pay attention to when you get the anxiety. Is it when you're about to go somewhere? Is it when you're around certain people? Is it right before you're about to do a reading? Or, pay attention to what's going on with you and you're going to start to notice a pattern and you'll feel what's yours and what's not yours. And then there's the old-fashioned sage and Palo Santo. If you think it's not yours, you can, cleanse your area and see if that makes a change in that field.
With regards to empaths and that, if someone's feeling someone else's energy, then there must be some kind of a match there. Otherwise, they wouldn't feel it, because obviously, like, frequencies need to be sort of compatible to some degree. Because it makes sense to me that if someone's feeling someone else's energy, then there must be something about them that is reflected in themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be feeling it. So it needs to, like, you need to figure out why you're feeling it in the first place and what their energy is showing you about yourself, and then you can sort of do something about it. If that makes sense.
I would say, and you can probably, Jimmy and Thomas, you can probably agree with this, is that typically, if you're an empath and you're feeling energy from somebody else, one, your aura is out, you're feeling their aura, right? Chances are you're a healer, right? You're feeling that somebody needs healing. So you're tapping into that energy, right? Where our auras are so huge. And so when we're able to tap into other people's auras to, do chakra balancing, sound healing, Reiki, shamanism, all of that stuff, our spirit guides are like, there's somebody that needs some type of healing. Whether you give them that healing or not, that's our job. We're healers. We're supposed to know when somebody needs a healing. And usually it's like, and there's no space or time, right? So if you're feeling something, it could be at the beginning of the day and you don't find that, energy that needs that healing until hours later, it's because we're being warned that there's somebody who needs a healing. And so it's a matter of just knowing that that's why you're feeling that it may not be yours. And it took a while for me to figure that out. I had debilitating vertigo and a number of other symptoms before realizing that it wasn't all mine. So,
Okay. Interesting.
yeah.
That's the last question, kind of leave off with Jim.
Mm.
Like, how do you like? I notice a lot on TikTok and other apps and places. There's just a lot of warfare going on. I mean, I noticed the spiritual community before I even got online. I was like, all these people are fighting. The whole point of this is for people not even to work together, but just kind of understand they're here for a reason. But I see so much of it, especially lately, because people are so triggered.
Yes.
People are so triggered. So it's like, and I'm just like, why? Like, boy, it feels like it's high school to me or elementary school.
Well, there's a lot of answers to that, right? There's them imitating what they see on TV, right? In the US, our political world, there's a lot of immaturity, right? All over. So there's that. But there's the main reason is ego. For some reason, and it could also be a lack of, I want to say training. Not that you can't do this work without training, but with training, you realize that there is more than enough work. There's more than enough dead people to go around for all of us. We don't have to compete with everybody because what's meant for you, you'll have, and what's meant for me, I'll have. So I don't have to put down another psychic medium in order for me to look good. And so there's a lot of that out there. It's like work with each other, like learn from each other, not to mention the way you do psychic medium is probably completely different from the way that I do it. So how are we comparing ourselves to each other? We can't. It's not apples to apples, So it's ego. It's ego. And when you're working from ego, you're working in low vibration, plain and simple. And so I would say to those people, be very careful because when you're working from anger and low vibration, you're opening yourself up to attachments and to other energies that you may not want to work with. So if that's what you want to work with, then have at it. But I would rather work with that energy from a higher vibration, knowing that I'm constantly protected. And as someone who has had an attachment, trust me, you don't want one. You do not want one.
It's something that I sort of recently kind of made me laugh in a sense. And you were talking about going back to school or whatever. You mentioned this playground or something like that. And I saw that you've probably seen it. That I've seen it in different forms and variations, but it basically says something along the lines of, "Don't mess with me because you're not prepared to handle the gods that have my back," or something like that, or something, a variation like that. And I thought, are we back at school? Because that's just like the spiritual version of my dad's bigger than your dad. And it basically, in a sense, it is. And that's kind of like, oh, my dad's better than more, my dad can beat up your dad. And I thought, that's school ground, that's school ground stuff. And are we really adults matured to back? I know they say get in touch with your inner child, but I'm not sure they meant that.
I think it's trendy for people to be against love and light because people are misinterpreting what love and light really is. And I was one of them, so I get it. Let's be badass. Let's be against all of that. But, you're messing around with something that is way bigger than you. We probably know a tiny fraction of what the spirit realm can do and all the things that we're able to do. So I would highly suggest that everybody has pure intentions when they're doing this work. Because I've seen people who started off with good intentions, but then somehow got caught up in their ego, and it led them astray. So I caution not to scare anybody, because it's so simple just to surround yourself with love, with the higher vibrations. But you can do the shadow work and still be protected and still be around angels and help both sides, those who have crossed over and those who haven't. So it's really staying away from that ego. It's not us, it's spirit who's working through us.
Beautiful. And on that note, I think we should come up to the hour mark. Kimmy, do you want to just remind us where we can find you, and if you got anything coming up or anything like that? Just to...
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me on your show. I've had such a great time. I love hanging out with like-minded people, where there's no competition. We're just talking. But if you have any questions, you can definitely find me on kimmyangelique.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Kimmy Angelique, so I'm very easy to find. I am doing that paranormal investigation this weekend, so I'll let you know how that goes. But you'll definitely see me around.
Excellent. Thomas, you got any courses or classes coming up this weekend, brother?
Yeah, of course, you find me at thomassawyer.com. I have a meetup in Sewell Mill Park, Marietta, Georgia, near Atlanta. Quite a few people have already signed up. It's a Sunday at 2 to 4 p.m. It's free. Just doing psychic work and energy work for free at the park. And you can sign up for that at thomassawyer.com. I'll probably have a class for Monday out in the next day or so.
Excellent. Right. Thank you both very much. And we'll see everyone next week. Thank you. Au revoir.
Thank you.